Why do the smartest people sometimes look like the least intelligent person in the room? Think about it. The loudest person often appears confident. The person who always has an answer appears knowledgeable. The person who speaks first appears decisive. Meanwhile, the person who stays quiet, observes carefully, asks questions, or admits that they do not know may be judged as weak, slow, or even foolish. But appearances can be deeply misleading. Real intelligence is not always loud. It does not always announce itself. It does not need to win every argument or prove its worth to everyone watching. Sometimes intelligence looks like silence. Sometimes it looks like hesitation. Sometimes it looks like asking a question that seems obvious. Sometimes it looks like walking away from an argument when everyone else is desperate to win. The deeper your understanding becomes, the more you realize how much you do not know. You begin to see possibilities, consequences, hidden motives, and alternative explanations that others may overlook. You become less interested in reacting immediately and more interested in understanding completely. This can make you appear slower, but there is a difference between being slow and being deliberate. There is a difference between being uncertain and being thoughtful. There is a difference between being quiet and having nothing to say. And there is a difference between looking intelligent and actually developing intelligence. In a world where people constantly compete for attention, the person who refuses to perform can easily be misunderstood. But you do not need to perform your intelligence. You need to develop your awareness. You need to train your ability to observe before reacting, think before speaking, question your assumptions, and remain calm when you do not have all the answers. Because the strongest mind is not the mind that knows everything. It is the mind that can recognize what it does not know and still remain steady. So in this journey, do not ask yourself, how can I look smarter? Ask something deeper. How can I see more clearly? Because once you stop trying to impress people, you become free to learn. And once you become free to learn, you begin to understand why some of the wisest people may appear ordinary, quiet, strange, or even foolish from the outside. The surface tells only a small part of the story. The real transformation happens underneath. There is a quiet kind of intelligence that does not announce itself. It does not compete for attention, interrupt conversations, or constantly remind people how much it knows. In fact, one of the clearest signs of maturity is becoming less interested in proving yourself. When you truly understand something, you no longer need everyone around you to recognize your understanding. Think about how often people argue simply because they want to be right. They are not searching for truth. They are defending an identity. Someone challenges their opinion and immediately they become defensive. Their goal changes from learning to winning. But an intelligent mind asks a different question. What can I learn from this? That question requires humility. You may know something today that you did not know yesterday. Tomorrow, you may discover that something you believed was incomplete. This is not failure. This is growth. The mind that can change its position when presented with better information is stronger than the mind that stubbornly protects an old belief. This is why the smartest person in the room may sometimes say very little. They are observing. They are listening. They are studying the situation before deciding how to respond. They understand that speaking quickly does not make a person wise. Confidence does not automatically mean competence. And having an opinion about everything does not mean understanding anything deeply. There is tremendous strength in being able to say, I don't know. Those three words can be difficult because the ego wants to appear complete. It wants to appear knowledgeable, capable, and superior. But intelligence is not about appearing complete. It is about remaining open. The person who admits what they do not know creates space for learning. The person who pretends to know everything closes that space. So stop measuring your intelligence by how impressed people are with you. Measure it by the quality of your decisions, the depth of your questions, the patience of your observation, and your willingness to correct yourself. You do not need to prove that you are intelligent. Build yourself quietly. Let your actions become your evidence. Let your discipline speak. Let your understanding become visible through the way you live. When you no longer need applause for your intelligence, you become free to pursue something far more valuable than appearing smart, becoming wise. In a world that rewards speed, pausing can look like weakness. People are expected to answer immediately, make quick decisions, and react to everything that happens around them. But intelligence does not always move quickly on the outside. Sometimes the mind is working deeply beneath the surface. A thoughtful person does not immediately accept the first explanation that appears. They observe, they listen, they examine the situation from different angles. Before speaking, they may ask themselves, what am I missing? What are the consequences? Is this really what it appears to be? To someone who is accustomed to instant reactions, this can look like hesitation or confusion. But there is a major difference between hesitation caused by fear and patience caused by awareness. Fear says, I don't know what to do. Wisdom says, I will understand before I act. This distinction is important in everyday life. Imagine someone receives an insulting message. The impulsive response is immediate: anger, defense, explanation, retaliation. But the thoughtful person pauses. They allow the emotional reaction to settle before deciding whether a response is even necessary. That pause creates power. The same principle applies to important decisions. When everyone around you is rushing toward an opportunity, you do not have to rush simply because everyone else is moving. You can stop and ask whether the opportunity actually serves your values, whether the risks are acceptable, and whether you are being influenced by excitement or pressure. Sometimes the smartest decision is to wait. Waiting is not inactivity when you are using the time to gain clarity. A deep thinker understands that the first thought is not always the best thought. The first emotion is not always the truth. The first opportunity is not always the right opportunity. And the loudest opinion is not necessarily the wisest one. This is why you should become comfortable with taking your time. Listen carefully, observe patterns, ask questions, allow information to settle, then act with intention. You do not need to match the speed of the world. You need to develop the ability to move at the speed of understanding. When you learn this, people may sometimes wonder why you did not react sooner. Let them wonder. You are not trying to win the race to respond. You are training yourself to make fewer decisions you will later regret. Sometimes the person who appears slow is simply the person who sees farther. One of the most misunderstood forms of intelligence is simplicity. We often assume that a smart person should sound complicated, use difficult words, or make every idea appear sophisticated. But true understanding often moves in the opposite direction. The deeper a person understands something, the more capable they become of making it simple. A person who has only partial knowledge may need many words to explain a basic idea. They may repeat themselves, add unnecessary details, and make simple things sound complicated because they have not yet discovered what truly matters. But someone who understands the structure beneath the surface can remove everything unnecessary and communicate the essential point with clarity. This is why you should never judge intelligence by appearance. Someone may dress simply, speak quietly, or live without constantly displaying achievements. They may not participate in every debate or attempt to demonstrate what they know. Yet inside their mind, they may be observing patterns, connecting ideas, and considering consequences that others have not noticed. Think about a martial artist. The beginner often uses unnecessary movement. Every action is exaggerated because they are trying to generate power. With experience, movement becomes smaller, cleaner, and more efficient. The expert does less because they understand more. The same principle applies to the mind. As your understanding grows, you begin removing unnecessary reactions. You stop explaining every decision. You stop arguing about every opinion. You stop chasing every distraction. You begin asking yourself, what actually matters here? That question is powerful. When someone criticizes you, you do not immediately need to defend yourself. First, observe. Is there something useful in what they said? If there is, learn from it. If there is not, release it. When a problem appears, you do not need to panic. Break it down, find the essential part, deal with what is within your control. When life becomes complicated, return to fundamentals. Sleep properly, train your body, guard your attention, keep your promises, speak honestly, work consistently, learn continuously. These actions may look ordinary, but ordinary actions practiced with extraordinary consistency create extraordinary results. Never underestimate the person who appears simple. Sometimes simplicity is not a lack of depth. Sometimes simplicity is the evidence that depth has already been developed. Being misunderstood is often the price of seeing beyond appearances. When you begin to think differently from the people around you, not everyone will understand what you are doing. You may choose silence when others expect an argument. You may question something everyone else accepts. You may walk away from situations that others believe you should fight. From the outside, these choices can look strange, but different does not mean wrong. A person who sees only the surface judges according to what is immediately visible. A person who thinks deeply asks what exists underneath. They do not simply ask, what happened? They ask, why did it happen? What caused it? What can I learn from it? What am I failing to notice? This deeper observation changes behavior. You become less reactive because you understand that the first explanation is not always the correct one. You become more patient because you recognize that people act from experiences you may know nothing about. You become more careful with your words because you understand that once something is spoken, you cannot completely control how it will be received. And this can create a strange experience. The more carefully you think, the less certain you may appear. You might say, I need more information. Someone else might interpret that as weakness. You might say, I could be wrong. Someone else might interpret that as insecurity. You might refuse to participate in gossip. Someone else might interpret that as arrogance. You might stop explaining yourself. Someone else might assume you have nothing to say. But you cannot build your life around correcting every misunderstanding. If you spend your entire life trying to control how others interpret you, you will become exhausted. There will always be someone who sees your patience as weakness, your boundaries as selfishness, your silence as arrogance, or your independence as isolation. Your responsibility is not to control their interpretation. Your responsibility is to remain honest with yourself. Of course, being misunderstood does not automatically mean you are wise. Sometimes criticism reveals something you genuinely need to change. Intelligence requires enough humility to listen without immediately becoming defensive. Ask yourself, is this criticism useful? If it is, learn from it. If it is not, release it. That is maturity. You do not need everyone to understand your path. You need to understand why you are walking it. When your actions are aligned with your values, you become less dependent on approval. You can remain calm while being misunderstood because you know that your character is built through what you repeatedly do, not through what everyone happens to believe about you. Let people see the surface. You keep working on the depth, because eventually the quality of your life will speak more clearly than any explanation ever could.